On seeing the additional supply of wads for each deck, made up along with the shot boxes in the form of sofas with neat canvas covers, he observed, "The friendships of war have all the preparations for action that you have, but they have not the way of combining appearance with utility." We had breakfast about 9 o'clock in the English style, consisting of tea, coffee, cold meat, etc. He did not eat much, or seem to relish it, and when, on inquiry, I found he was accustomed to have a hot meal in the morning, I immediately ordered my steward to allow his maitre d'hotel to give directions that he might invariably be served in the manner he had been used to, and after that we always lived in the French fashion as far as I could effect that object. During breakfast he asked many questions about English customs, saying, "I must now learn to conform myself to them, as I shall probably pass the remainder of my life in England." The Superb, as I before observed, had been seen in the offing early in the morning, and was now approaching with a light breeze. He asked 2 or 3 times how soon she would anchor, seemed very anxious to know whether the Admiral would approve of my having received him, and when I went to wait on Sir Henry Hotham, requested I would say he was desirous of seeing him. The Superb anchored about 10:30, and I immediately went on board and gave the Admiral an account of all that had occurred, adding, "I trust I have done right, and that the government will approve of my conduct, as I considered of much importance to prevent Bonaparte's escape to America, and to get possession of his person." Sir Henry Hotham said, "Getting hold of him on any terms would have been the greatest consequence, but as you have entered into no conditions whatever, there cannot be a doubt that you will obtain the approbation of His Majesty's government." He then said, "How do you feel as to keeping him? Would you like to part with him?" "Certainly not," was my answer. "As I have had all the anxiety and responsibility conducting this matter to an issue, I am of course desirous of taking him to England, but as I do not wish to keep him or any man in my ship against his will, if he desires to remove into another, I shall certainly not object." I then delivered Bonaparte's message that he was desirous of receiving a visit from the Admiral, who said he would wait upon him with much pleasure. I soon after returned to the Bellerophon, and told Bonaparte that the Admiral meant to wait on him, upon which he desired Count Bertrand to go and pay his respects to Sir Henry. I accompanied him, and while the Admiral was preparing for his visit, Captain Senhouse attended General Bertrand to the ship. In the afternoon, Sir Henry Hotham, accompanied by Captain Senhouse and Mr. Irving, his secretary, came on board the Bellerophon. They were introduced to Bonaparte by General Bertrand in the after cabin, where he had a good deal of conversation with them. He showed his portable library, which was laid out in a small traveling case around the cabin, asked various questions, principally relative to the discipline and regulation of our ships of war, and finally invited them all to remain to dinner. Dinner was served about 5 o'clock upon Bonaparte's plate. This was arranged by his maitre d'hotel, whom I had told to regulate everything in the manner most likely to be agreeable to his master. When the dinner was announced, Bonaparte, viewing himself as a royal personage, which he continued to do while on board the Bellerophon, on which, under the circumstances, I considered it would have been both ungracious and uncalled for in me to have disputed, led the way into the dining room. He seated himself in the center at one side of the table, requesting Sir Henry Hotham to sit at his right hand and Madame Bertrand on his left. For that day I sat as usual at the head of the table, but on the following day and every other, whilst Bonaparte remained on board, I sat by his request at his right hand, and General Bertrand took the top. 2 of the wardroom officers dined daily at the table by invitation from Bonaparte, conveyed through Count Bertrand.